You ever see someone rise so fast, so fiercely, that the very people who should be cheering her on start looking a little too quiet? That's the vibe surrounding Caitlin Clark's shocking Nike logo reveal, and the Indiana Fever's bizarre silence in the middle of the biggest branding moment of her young career. Let's be clear, this wasn't just another logo drop. This was the moment. Nike didn't just roll out some merch, they unleashed a legacy. The interlocking CC insignia hits social media like a thunderclap. Simple, clean, iconic.
If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe.
The kind of logo that doesn't just live on jerseys, it lives in culture. And yet, the Indiana Fever? Nowhere to be found. No coordinated post. No celebratory tweet. No congrats to our superstar. Nothing. Just silence. And people noticed. Fast. Because when your franchise player, the one carrying your ticket sales, your viewership, your entire identity, gets elevated to the level of global Nike icon, you say something. You do something. You don't just vanish in a PR oblivion like you're not witnessing history unfold in real time. So now the question isn't why Caitlin Clark got a signature logo. It's why her own team seems reluctant to celebrate it. And let's not dance around it. Jealousy's in the air. You can feel the tension. The whispers. It's her again getting the attention energy. It's the classic athlete branding dilemma. Except it's happening in public. And instead of riding the wave with her, the Fever seem like they're trying to avoid getting wet. So what gives? Let's unpack it. First, we need to understand what this logo actually means, because this isn't just a fashion moment. This is brand immortality. This is Nike betting on Clark, not just as a baller, but as a movement. The logo isn't just merch, it's a flag. A statement that Caitlin Clark is here to do what very few women in sports ever get the platform to do. Build an empire. Jordan has the Jumpman. LeBron has his crown. Serena's S became a signature of power and poise. And now, Clark has her own mark. That's not normal rookie energy. That's icon-in-the-making energy. But instead of celebrating, the Fever, intentionally or not, have created a wave of suspicion. Because when a moment this big drops, and the franchise says nothing, it doesn't go unnoticed. Fans are connecting the dots. And let's not pretend this is the first time things have felt weird between Clark and the team. From inconsistent chemistry to the way she's been left to fend for herself on the court, while taking brutal hits with zero consequences. There's been this undercurrent all season. A sense that maybe, just maybe, not everyone in the Fever locker room is on board with Caitlin being the face of the league. It's not hard to imagine why. She walked into the league with more media coverage than some veterans have had in their entire careers. Every arena she enters sells out. Every comment she makes becomes a headline. Every outfit, every shot, every handshake, it's all analyzed, memed, and monetized. And now, she's got a Nike logo. A real one. Not just a collab. Not just a capsule. An identity. It's the kind of thing that transcends stats. That turns an athlete into a brand. And that makes some people, on and off the court, uncomfortable. Let's keep it all the way real here. This logo is the clearest signal, yet that Caitlin Clark is not just a player. She's a franchise of her own. So where does that leave the actual franchise? If you're the Indiana Fever, you're now in a very complicated position. On one hand, you have a most marketable name in women's basketball. On the other, you have a team that's not exactly thriving. Chemistry has been off. On-court leadership has been questioned. Coaching decisions have raised eyebrows. And now, your star player just got launched into a global orbit that might leave the team behind entirely. So when Nike dropped that logo, the Fever weren't just witnessing a branding moment. They were watching power shift. Because here's what no one wants to say. Caitlin Clark now has more cultural power than her team. Maybe even the league. And when that happens, people start getting nervous. They start pulling back, going silent, getting territorial. And instead of saying, "This is our player, we're proud," it turns into, "That's her thing. We're doing our own thing over here." But that's short-sighted, because Clark's win is their win. Her logo brings more fans, more eyes, more investment into the team. if they're smart enough to ride the wave. Instead, they're playing it like a turf war, which, let's be honest, is a mistake. Because Clark isn't just boosting her own brand, she's boosting everyone's. Look at the viewership. Look at the rookie class attention. Look at how much more mainstream conversation is being generated around all of women's basketball. The energy she's created is rising tide lifts all boats energy. But that only works if the boats don't try to plug their ears and pretend they don't hear the waves. And let's talk about the logo itself for a second, because it deserves attention. That interlocking CC design, elegant, powerful, timeless. It's not flashy. It's not overdone. It's the kind of logo that says, I'm not chasing attention. I am the attention. Some have compared it to Chanel or Gucci, brands that speak for themselves without having to shout. And that's the genius of it. Nike didn't just create a basketball logo. They created a luxury identity, a global signature that works on apparel, shoes, and beyond. And oh yeah, her signature shoe is coming in 2026. You think we've hit P. Clark? We haven't even started. The rollout is strategic. They're letting her logo simmer, build hype, sell out merchandise, and establish a foothold. By the time the shoe hits shelves, she'll already be a household name worldwide. So where does all of this leave the Fever? Exactly where they put themselves, on the sidelines of their own success story. And now they're being called out for it. Fans are watching, commenting, asking why the biggest moment in their star's career is being treated like a footnote. Other franchises would have thrown a parade, but the Fever, they chose silence. And in 2025, silence isn't neutral. It's a statement. Whether it's jealousy, internal drama, PR fumbling, or just plain awkwardness, the result is the same. They're losing a chance to be part of a moment that will define sports history. And Caitlin? She doesn't need them to celebrate her. She is the celebration. So the Indiana Fever can keep sitting on their hands, pretending not to notice. But eventually, they'll have to reckon with the fact that they have a generational talent who might outgrow them faster than they realize. Because when your own team can't clap for you when the world does, that tells you everything. So here's the question for you. Is this just a PR oversight? Or is something deeper going on behind the scenes? Are the Fever quietly resentful of Clark's rise? Or just painfully out of touch? Let us know what you think in the comments. And if you're here for the drama, the branding power plays, and the cultural shakeups behind the scenes, hit subscribe. Because Caitlin Clark's logo is just the beginning. And the real game? It's being played off the court. We've talked about the Indiana Fever's suspicious silence, the rise of the CC logo as a symbol of athletic royalty, and Nike's calculated push to crown Caitlin Clark as the next billion-dollar brand. But let's get into something even more unspoken, the fear. Not Caitlin's, the league's, the team's, the systems. Because when someone like Caitlin Clark steps onto the global stage with that kind of presence, that kind of influence, and now that kind of branding power, you don't just have a player anymore. You have a threat to the hierarchy. Here's the hard truth. The WNBA has long operated on a system of parity. No single player above the collective. Everyone's voice matters. Solidarity, equality. And while those are noble ideals, honestly, necessary for a women's league to survive for decades, they were never built to handle someone like Caitlin Clark. She doesn't fit the system. She exposes it. Because her rise isn't just about talent. It's about narrative control. She didn't wait for the league to hand her the crown. She built her own throne outside the system. Through March Madness. Through ESPN deals. Through TikTok virality. Through massive fan loyalty that didn't need a league to legitimize her. Now, with Nike stepping in and slapping a sleek, double-C signature on it, Caitlin's essentially become a freelance legend. One who just so happens to be wearing a Fever jersey. And that scares people. Because when an athlete becomes bigger than their team, their league, or the infrastructure built to contain them, the power dynamics shift. Suddenly, the player isn't answering to the system. The system is reacting to the player. And the Fever? They haven't figured out how to handle that shift. Let's be blunt. Most WNBA franchises have never had to manage a player with this level of influence. Not one whose merch sells out in seconds. Not one whose highlights lead SportsCenter every night. not one whose logo is being compared to fashion houses and global icons. So now they're navigating unfamiliar waters, trying to maintain team chemistry and balance, while also sitting on a marketing nuke they can't control. Do they fully lean in and let Caitlin's brand define the franchise? Or do they try to protect the locker room culture and pretend it's still business as usual? Spoiler, they've tried to split the difference. And in doing so, they're losing both sides. Because you can't half celebrate a global icon. That's not how momentum works. You're either riding the wave or getting crushed under it. And the Fever, frankly, are stuck in shallow water, watching the tide roll out with their superstar surfing straight into history. And let's talk about the other players. Because as much as fans want to believe everyone's one big happy family, that locker room has tension. Of course it does. You think it's all high fives and team dinners when one rookie walks in and immediately becomes the face of the sport? Jealousy doesn't always come from hate. It comes from imbalance. Veterans who've grinded for years, some of whom never got the media love or sponsorships or interviews, are suddenly getting sidelined for a rookie who hasn't even been in the league a full season. That's not personal. That's emotional. Human. And now that Clark's Nike deal has officially made her a multi-million-dollar brand, it's not just imbalance. It's a full-blown cultural shift in how value is assigned in the league. Let's say it out loud. The era of team-first loyalty is being tested. Caitlin Clark has proven that you can build your own empire while still being a rookie, that you can command global attention without the traditional route, that you can get a signature logo before winning a championship, before earning MVP, before paying your so-called dues. And that realization, it's about to change everything. Agents are watching. Young athletes are watching. College recruits are taking notes. This is the LeBron effect, the Serena pivot, the Ronda Rousey moment, that flashpoint when a single figure becomes bigger than the arena they play in. Nike knows this. That's why they revealed the logo without waiting for the league to catch up. They didn't need permission. They had Caitlin. That's all. And let's be real, it's not just about basketball. This is branding warfare. Caitlin Clark isn't just entering the rarefied air of sports icons. She's stepping into a marketing galaxy where names like Federer, Brady, and Messi roam. Athletes who stopped being players and became platforms. And her logo? That's the key. Because that double C mark is more than initials. It's a brand passport. One that transcends leagues, contracts, and even borders. Don't believe it? Wait until her line drops internationally. China, Germany, Italy. Nike's already positioning her as a global ambassador. Not just for women's hoops, for modern sports culture. And back in Indiana, the silence from the franchise now feels almost small. Like watching someone fumble with a flashlight while a spotlight shines down next to them. And don't get twisted, this is still their moment to lose. The Fever still have Caitlin Clark. She still wears their jersey. She still puts up numbers, fills arenas, and breaks cameras with every logo 3. But if they continue acting like her spotlight is separate from theirs, if they don't publicly embrace her rise, if they don't stand at that press podium with her, where the merch, hype the logo, push the campaign, they'll lose more than a marketing opportunity. They'll lose trust from fans, from sponsors, from her. Because eventually, the world's going to ask, why does everyone support her, except her own team? And that's a headline no franchise wants to own. So to wrap this up, let's be honest with ourselves. This logo moment wasn't just a branding win. It was a line in the sand. Caitlin Clark is moving into a different tier of athlete. A tier where the expectations are different, where the spotlight is permanent, where the rules of engagement change. The question is, will the Fever rise with her? Or will they keep pretending this isn't happening in real time? Either way, Caitlin's going. She's already gone. She's not just building a legacy. She's designing a brand. And the double C? That's not just her logo. It's a warning shot. We're entering an era where the players own the power. Not the league. Not the front office. Not even the broadcast networks. The player is the product. And Caitlin Clark? She's the blueprint. Let's start by asking the real question. Why was the Nike logo reveal even a surprise in the first place? If this were any other league, any other player with this kind of buzz, we'd be seeing countdowns, teasers, brand rollouts so massive they'd black out Times Square. But here, Nike had to drop that logo like a secret album at midnight. And the Indiana Fever didn't even throw a listening party. It's not just a missed opportunity, it's a missed moment. And in 2025, that's inexcusable. Because here's the harsh truth. In this content economy, attention is currency. And Clark is the richest player in the league. She's not just selling jerseys, she's generating conversation. She's creating moments that drive clicks, comments, and culture. That's worth more than points per game or rookie efficiency stats. That's gold to brands, networks, sponsors, and yes, teams. And yet, the Fever are acting like they got stuck in a group project with the overachiever and don't know how to contribute. You can't tell me they didn't know the logo was coming. You can't tell me they didn't get the press releases, the promo shots, the digital assets. This wasn't some DIY announcement. Nike did what Nike always does. They planned it with military precision. So where was the rollout partner? Where was the team activation? Imagine if Indiana had flipped Gainbridge Fieldhouse into a CC Arena for the week. Imagine pop-up merch booths, fan meetups, player Q&As with teammates hyping her up. Any form of acknowledgement that their franchise player was being elevated to a global level. But instead, it felt like they were more comfortable watching it happen from a distance, like fans in the nosebleeds of their own house. That's a branding fail. But more importantly, it's a cultural disconnect. Because Caitlin Clark isn't just repping herself anymore. She's repping a movement. She's Gen Z's first sports superhero, a figure born online, forged in viral moments, and now crystallized in corporate gold. And what the Fever and the WNBA don't seem to realize is that this isn't a phase. It's a power shift. Let's talk about that. Because for decades, women's sports have been playing catch-up, fighting for airtime, scraping for sponsors, hustling for every inch of media space. But Caitlin flipped the script. She made the media chase her. ESPN didn't discover her. They followed her. The brands didn't build her. They bet on her after the wave was already moving. And the league? The league is now faced with the question it never had to answer before. How do you manage a player who doesn't need you to be famous? That's uncharted territory. Because athletes like this don't come around often. And when they do, you don't smother them. You collaborate with them. You lift them up, not just for their sake, but for yours. You use their light to illuminate the entire league. But right now, it feels like people are squinting. And look, we can't ignore the off-court politics happening here. Because let's be honest, there's a real undercurrent in all of this about how Clark rose so fast. There are conversations about race, legacy, media bias, college favoritism, all swirling around the edges of every viral clip, every MVP ballot, every interview she gives. That's real. That deserves space. But here's where the league needs to level up. Those conversations don't have to be threats. They can be platforms. There is room for multiple stars, multiple stories, multiple styles of greatness. Caitlin Clark's rise doesn't erase the work of veterans. It doesn't diminish other players' value. It just means that the marketing model of the past, where women's sports had to be one-size-fits-all, is finally being broken open. And that's a good thing. You want to elevate the whole league? Then elevate everyone in different ways. Make Caitlin the brand icon. Make Boston the anchor. Make Air Ike the firebrand. Make Chelsea Gray the tactician. Give each of them space to be legendary in their own right. But pretending like Clark's rise isn't happening, or worse, refusing to engage with it out of discomfort, isn't protecting team culture. It's kneecapping the movement. And Caitlin? She's not slowing down. That Nike logo? That's step one. You think this stops at t-shirts and warm-ups? No. We're about to see full campaigns. Commercials, shoe reveals, global press tours, maybe even her own line of performance gear, engineered by her, worn by the next generation of girl hoopers. And if Indiana doesn't get on board, another team will. Because remember, she's not bound to Indiana forever. Free agency exists, and so do global leagues with bigger checks, better marketing, and a clear understanding of what it means to build a superstar brand. So the Fever better think long and hard about what they're signaling right now. Because Caitlin Clark isn't just building a brand. She's building options. And the team that supports her vision, that grows with her, that doesn't shrink in her shadow, but thrives in her light, that team will get the real rewards. Not just merch sales, not just headlines, but legacy. The kind that turns a franchise from a logo on a jersey into a chapter in sports history. So here's where we're at. Caitlin Clark just became a logo. The Fever became a footnote. And unless something changes fast, the story will move on without them. So to the fans watching this all unfold, what do you think? Is Indiana mishandling their biggest star since Tamika Catchings? Are they playing small on purpose or just too slow to adapt? And how can the league actually support stars like Clark without making it feel like favoritism? Let's get into it. Drop your thoughts below. Hit that subscribe button if you're here for the full ride. And don't forget, when an athlete becomes a brand, you either build with them or you get left behind.